welcome back to my channel. My name is Shauna if you're new here, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about how I got my baby to start sleeping through the night and putting himself to sleep without using sleep training or the cry it out method. So if that's something that interests you, stay tuned for my story. Like I said, if you are new here, my name is Shauna. I do have a 15-month-old little boy named Charlie who is extremely high maintenance and has never been a very good sleeper. From the moment he was born, he was wide awake and never took more than a little cat nap. That was just how he was, and I had a very rough time getting him to sleep. I have mentioned this in multiple baby updates, so if that's something that you're interested in hearing the whole backstory, make sure you go check out those baby updates at the end of this. But he's just never been a good sleeper. He slept on me for a long time, we co-slept for a long time, and then eventually once I did get him to sleep in his own bed, he was still waking up multiple times through the night. But I didn't want to do sleep training or the cry it out method because I don't like those methods. For me personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with them, and if they work for you, that's great. There's tons of videos out there. Go check one of them out and they'll tell you all about sleep training and crying it out. But it just wasn't for me. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about why, but I do want to just mention that this is like no shade on anyone who did do the cry it out method. I'm not judging. I think that every baby is different, every family is different, and you just need to do what works for you and your family. As long as your baby is fed and healthy and happy, you have no judgment from me. I think there are a million different ways to parent, and who the hell knows what's the right way. So this is just my way and my thoughts, but I did want to share kind of my reasoning as to why I didn't want to do sleep training and crying it out, just in case you have similar thoughts. You know you're not alone. So for me personally, I believe that when children are little, under one particularly, this is when they're learning to trust their parents, learning that you're going to take care of them, that you're going to be there for them when they need you. When a baby cries, even if it's in the middle of the night, even if they are fed, even if they have a clean diaper on and nothing is actually wrong with them, when they cry, they think they need you. And I didn't want my baby to think that I wouldn't come when he cried. I wanted him to know that if he thought he needed me, I was there. And I wanted to instill that in him from a very little age, that when he needs mommy, I'll be there. And that was just my personal feelings about it. It killed me to hear him crying for me and me to ignore it, or for him. When you do the cry it out method, a lot of babies stop crying because they realize you're not coming. And I didn't ever want my son to feel that or to get that vibe. So I decided I couldn't do the cry it out method. And that's just, like I said, me personally, I just couldn't do it. But so let's start. So as I mentioned, he slept with me until about 6 months. After that, we did start putting him in his bed, but he did wake up multiple times a night. Up until a year, he was still getting at least one bottle in the middle of the night. He would still wake up and want a bottle, and he was usually still waking up 2 to 3 times a night. And that was rough. I am a working mom. I do work full-time outside of the home, and I'm gone for about 10 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and I'm not gonna lie, I was exhausted. There were some nights where I was getting 2, maybe 3 hours of sleep, and it was rough. But in my gut, I just knew that my child would eventually figure out how to sleep. And people kept telling me I was wrong, that you had to teach them that sleep was a learned habit, that they wouldn't figure it out eventually. But in my gut, I knew that was wrong, and I knew that he'd figure it out, and it turns out I was right. So I am happy about that, and I just kind of wanted to share my story so you guys know how I did it, and maybe this will work for your family as well. So around a year old, we were transitioning him from formula to milk. So by the time he turned 1, he was on whole milk. And then at that same time, I started not allowing him to have a bottle in the middle of the night. So if he woke up in the middle of the night and was crying, I would go in there and I would comfort him, but I wouldn't give him a bottle. So until it was at least 5 a.m. because he's a very early riser, so he wakes up sometime between 5 and 7 a.m. anyways. So before 5 a.m. though, he was not allowed to have a bottle or anything in the middle of the night. We also transitioned away from a bottle at this point, so we have a sippy cup, but just so you guys know, when I say bottle, I mean a sippy cup or a bottle. Wherever we were in the process, it was one or the other. So I started not giving him a bottle, and that automatically started, after a few weeks, he started waking up less throughout the night, and so it got to the point where it was more like once a night he was waking up, and then we started not picking him up when we go in there. So if he woke up crying, I would still go into his room. I would pat him on the back. I would tell him everything was okay, that mommy loved him. If he was standing up and crying, I would even give him a hug and kiss him on the cheek and then lay him back down. But I would not pick him up out of his bed. And I realized a lot of the times when he was waking up in the middle of the night, my child is a binky child. He has a pacifier still, even at 15 months. And a lot of times when he was waking up in the middle of the night, it was because he had lost his pacifier and he couldn't find it. So first, I started sending him to bed with multiple pacifiers. And second, the first thing I do when I go in is make sure he had a pacifier. And that usually helped. But I stopped picking him up at night. And so that started helping as well. And then as I started doing that, at this point, he's waking up once, maybe twice a night. I also stopped going in there immediately when he'd wake up. So it used to be, as soon as I heard him stirring, even if he wasn't screaming yet, I'd go into his room as soon as he woke up. And I probably should have started this earlier, is not going in there immediately. But so as soon as, when he would wake up and he'd start stirring and he'd kind of be fussing, but not like crying, he'd just kind of like be crying in his sleep type thing, I wouldn't go in there. And if you're a mom, I'm sure you can, around a year old, you really start to be able to tell the differences between your children's cries. So I can tell when he's upset. And still to this day, if he wakes up screaming and is like upset, I'll go into his room immediately. But a lot of times he wakes up and he's just whining. He's just kind of like crying in his sleep kind of thing. And so for those types of cries, I stopped going into the room and I started just kind of watching him on his monitor. And a lot of times he'd kind of fuss around and try to find a binky. And once he found a binky and stuck it in his mouth, he'd go back to sleep. And I was like, okay, this works. Like, we can do this. And so that helped as well, just kind of like watching him. And then a great other thing is we have a monitor that is a video monitor, and you can talk through the monitor to your baby in the baby room. And when he was little, like little up till probably 9 months or so, I had tried to talk to him through it a couple times, and it always just made the situation worse. He was wondering where I was, he was looking around for me, screaming, crying. It always made it worse. And so I kind of stopped using that. Around a year old or so, I started occasionally when he was just kind of fussing, he'd like kind of sit up in his bed and be crying a little. I would get on the monitor and I would talk to him and be like, it's okay, baby. You have your binky. Lay down and go night-night. It's okay. Get your blankie and go night-night. Or I'd say something like that. Or I'd sing him one of his bedtime songs through the monitor. Just a quick like, good night, sleep tight type thing. And it started working where a lot of times that would help him just kind of calm down and lay down. And so then I didn't even have to go into his room anymore. And so that was another thing that really helped us. Now, around the same time, he was probably about 13 months old, and I've always rocked him to sleep. Always. After he stopped sleeping with me in bed, we started rocking him to sleep. And I've always done that, and I wasn't ever planning on really like weaning him off of that. I mean, I knew eventually I'd have to, but I kind of just figured he'd do it on his own. And spoiler alert, I was right. He did it on his own. One night I was rocking him around 13 months old, and he was really fighting with me, just like arching his back. And I thought it was because he wasn't tired and he wanted to play, and so I was getting a little frustrated. And eventually I was like, okay, fine, you're just going to go lay down in your bed then. And I went and I took him to his bed. I laid him down. I made sure he had his binky and his extra binky and his cup of milk and a blanket. And I said, good night, I love you. And I walked away, shut the door. And I went and I looked on the monitor and watched him. And he never moved. I watched him, and I could see his eyes just, I could see when they were open and closed, and they would start to like close for longer periods of times. And eventually he just fell asleep. He never even moved. And I was like, wait, what? Did my child just put himself to sleep? And he did. He went to sleep and he just slept. And I was like, what? Okay. And so then the next night I was like, we're going to try this again. We're going to see if it was just a fluke. And so I put him down again, and I went out and I looked on the monitor and I watched him, and he just went to sleep. And I was like, mind blown. Like, and that's how putting himself to sleep happened. It was really just one night he just decided he didn't want me to rock him anymore. And it's been like that ever since. He's 15 months old now, so for about 2 months now, he's been putting himself to sleep, and he prefers that. He actually doesn't want to be rocked to sleep anymore. And so that's how we do sleep time. And then around that same time, once he started putting himself to sleep at night, he stopped waking up through the night too. He still will occasionally, maybe like once every 10 to 14 nights, wake up in the middle of the night, and I will, if he's screaming, go in there. A lot of times I will just talk to him on the monitor and see if that works. But for the most part, he sleeps through the night now, which is amazing and awesome. And Mama needed it, y'all. Like, I needed it. So it's been really great. But I just wanted to share my story with you guys in case there are any other moms out there who are struggling and have a bunch of people telling you that you need to sleep train or that you need to do the cry it out method. You don't. Your kid will learn how to sleep. They will. It may take a year, maybe even longer. I'm sure there are some kids who it would take longer, but eventually your child will learn how to sleep, and eventually you'll be able to explain to them, no, it's time to go to bed. It's time to stay in your bed. And that is sometimes when he wakes up in the middle of the night now, I'll go in there and I'll be like, no, Charlie, it's still night-night time. It's still time to go to night-night. And he understands now. I don't know if he fully understands, but he understands enough that he'll lay down and be quiet, and it's been amazing. It works the same way for naps and everything. So I am blessed and happy, and I'm just glad that he now sleeps through the night and puts himself to sleep. It's been a game changer, not gonna lie. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. If you are new here and you liked this, make sure you hit that red subscribe button in the corner here and turn on your bell notifications so you don't miss any more of my uploads. You will be seeing a bunch of other Charlie related videos here pretty shortly, so make sure you stay tuned for that. I'll see you guys next time. Bye, y'all.